Sherlock Holmes, the great detective, the man who never lived but will never die. Now, what I have as a Holmesian, my Sherlock Holmes collection of physical books, is very, very, very small compared to the impressive collections of Sherlock Holmes books and memorability held by other people. I've never deliberately collected Holmes stuff. But over the years, I am a huge fan. I reread the canon on a regular basis, and I am a huge fan. And over the years, I've ended up with some pretty cool stuff. And let's start with the three-volume annotated Sherlock Holmes, done by Leslie Klinger. It was published in 2005, getting to be a long time ago now. And they were too pricey for me. They weren't unreasonably priced. We were being charged what it was worth, but it was more than I could afford. Until one day, the three-volume set. This was 12 to 15 years ago. It came up for on sale on Amazon for like $8, and I just happened to notice that and snatched it up. And these are just wonderful books. Every story is here. Every story is thoroughly annotated with lots of cool information, giving you cultural context and different random facts about stuff mentioned in the story. Theories about the stories by different Sherlock Holmes enthusiasts. Lots of cool essays. The Adventure of the Speckled Band then has an essay about what the snake might have actually been, because it's actually kind of a make-believe snake in the story. The Guns of Sherlock Holmes and John H. Watson. Well, he always just said they had revolvers, which of course is appropriate for the time period. But what exactly make and model were they? There's an essay theorizing on it. There's all sorts of cool stuffs in here. There's the original illustrations. Um, there's this story, the A Case of Identity. The lady in it works as a typist, and there's an ad for a typewriter that would have existed at the time the story was written. So all sorts of cool little things. I love having these books. These are normally up on the top shelf up there. I don't know if I can zoom in. There, I can zoom in. There's the space where they normally are, next to that awesome statue that was sent to me by Paul Bishop. And Paul Bishop is a writer, former police officer, and a superb writer, and also a Sherlock Holmes fan. And he published this year 52 Weeks, 52 Sherlock Holmes novels. And this is essays about different Holmes pastiches, Sherlock Holmes novels written by people other than Arthur Conan Doyle. And Paul was very kind to ask me to contribute, and I wrote a essay on the 7% Solution, the Nicholas Myers books from the 70s, because that was a book that helped make me a Holmes enthusiast. Prior to seeing the movie that this book was based on, and then buying the book soon after that and reading it, I had probably read a few of the stories, and I remember being insufferably proud of myself because I heard a radio adaptation of The Red-Haired League on the CBS Radio Mystery Theater and figured it out. And just, knew from that moment that I could be a brilliant detective and solve murders left and right if I ever happened to stumble across a murder. Still hasn't happened. But by golly, I'm still convinced I can do that. So I did this, and then over the course of putting this together, Paul asked me to contribute a total of 3 more articles. A Study in Scarlet is one, for instance. Um, and I just, thoroughly enjoyed writing these. The book is superb, even if discounting my essays, because I don't, obviously I can't give an objective opinion on those. I think they turned out pretty good. But all the other essays by other authors in here are just a ton of fun. And so this book is currently available, and I would recommend you getting it if you have any interest in Sherlock Holmes at all. Paul also at some point, ended up with an extra copy of Inside the Mind of Sherlock Holmes and sent it to me. It's another great book. And it just uses these illustrations here to show us, how Holmes's mind works. Fun illustrations, fun books. So there's the back. Sherlock Holmes fans can sink their teeth into this brand new original tale, a stunning visual treat. Every thought and clue that flows through Sherlock's mind is intricately illustrated. So it shows him solving a case and shows what goes on in his mind while he's solving it. Really unique book, and a very important take on Sherlock Holmes. Um, I have the Sherlock Holmes handbook right here, which gives you like practical information on detective skills, um, survival skills, life skills. What's a life skill? Let's find an example of a life skill. Underestimate them at your peril. Beware the woman scorned. That is good practical advice. But it's once again, it's a really, really fun book. Some friends of mine in church very recently found this 2-volume complete Sherlock Holmes set. I think they said they found it at a garage sale and thought of me and bought it and brought it to church and gave it to me. Really awesome of them. This has got the complete canon in it in 2 volumes. It was with a preface by Christopher Morley, who was a novelist and essayist from the early part of the 20th century. If you've never read his novels, Parnassus on Wheels and The Haunted Bookshop, you just need to do so as quick as you can because they're wonderful books. And he was a big Holmesian person himself. This volume was originally published in let's see, the earliest copyright date is 1905. So at that point, it wouldn't have included every story because all of them weren't written yet. Let's see, and it doesn't actually give a date of when this particular volume was printed, so I don't know if they happened to stumble across an original printing or if this was a reprint from later on. But it's, as I said, got all the stories there. It's nicely bound. I think the font and the text is nicely readable. It's just a fun way of experiencing the Holmes stories. So the complete Sherlock Holmes, but probably value mostly because of the preface by Christopher Morley. Whenever he wrote about Holmes, once again, if you have an interest in Holmes, you would want to read it. What do I have electronically? Let me see. I got to jump back up to Sherlock Holmes. I had it set on Sherlock Holmes. I must have nudged it. There we go, Sherlock Holmes. His category is between the Sharp books by Bernard Cornwell and the Spencer books by Robert Parker. So he's surrounded by 2 other great fictional characters. But the Sherlock Holmes books that I have an electronic copy of 52 Weeks, 52 Sherlock Holmes stories. I have these annotated versions of the original, I think like the original dozen, or the stories from Adventures and Memoirs. So 24 or 25 stories that were done in electronically with these nice annotations on them that explain, once again, asides and cultural notes and all of that about what's going on in the story. Also, it's hard to find a volume with the original version of the Adventure of the Resident Patient, which was altered a little before it was published in the U.S. And it's nice to be able to have one that I know is the absolute original version. So I have, there we go, The Canary Trainer. That's one of Nicholas Meyer's pastiches. Excuse me. The Complete Sherlock Holmes Illustrated, which is nice. It's got all the original Sidney Paget illustrations in it. The Golden Era of Sherlock Holmes and His Contemporaries, a mystery guide and finding list. It's just awful handy if you want to find information on the Holmes's fictional counterparts at the time his stories were being published. Some of them have remained popular and still in print. Others have dropped away into obscurity, but I just love stuff like that. It's an area of pop culture I'm very interested in. So this was a nice reference book to be able to find. An essay that Doyle wrote once, An Intimate Study of Sherlock Holmes. The book The Last Moriarty, a Sherlock Holmes and Lucy James mystery. I've actually not read this one yet. Most of the pastiches in here I got when, I noticed them on Amazon for like, $1.99 on sale, and I would pick them up, and I haven't read them all yet. The Lost Radio Adventures of Sherlock Holmes are short story versions of some of the original stories done on radio in the 40s when Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce were doing the movies, and they were also playing the parts on radio. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's Mycroft Holmes. I got to get around to reading that. That's been out for some years now. My wife read it and liked it a lot, and I've just been meaning to get to it. There's just so much stuff to read. The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes, The 7% Solution, my favorite Holmes pastiche, in part because it's the first one I ever read, but it's just, an excellent book. Myers really catches the voice of Watson perfectly and creates stories that I could easily see as being part of the Sherlock Holmes universe. Sherlock Holmes and the Shakespeare Globe Murders. Sherlock Holmes on the Western Front, which has his World War I activities. The Sherlock Holmes crossover cookbook. And that's another one I picked up when it was on sale electronically. I really, really need to get back into this category and read some of this stuff. And it's several other pastiches here. Sherlock Holmes as a boxer, short stories, or a novel. I can't remember which this is. Let me see. But it concentrates on his skill as a boxer. Let's look at the... I can't really tell if this is a bunch of short stories, interconnected short stories, or if it's one long novel. And it's been too long since I bought it. I don't remember. In either case, the concept, concentrating on Holmes's boxing skills and knowledge of boxing, is an excellent idea. And I just look forward to eventually getting down and reading this. I'm kind of glad I did this video, if only to remind myself of what I have on my Kindle that I haven't read yet. Because the one trouble with the Kindle, I don't mind books, owning electronic copies of books. It's really convenient. Wherever I go, I have like my private personal library around. I got a shot of my feet in there for a moment. Sorry about that. I hope that didn't horrify anybody. But you do tend to forget you have stuff because they're just buried in there and they're not visible to you. I can go over to my to be read shelf over there and just look at what I have yet to read. But the stuff that you own electronically, you can forget. But there is, and once again, I know this is a very, very small Sherlock Holmes collection compared to the amazing collections that are out there. But I enjoy it. I like having these, and all of them are fun, and that is my Sherlock Holmes collection. And having read all this stuff, I feel convinced that if I ever stumble across a murder and the police are baffled, I will be able to use brilliant deductive reasoning to solve the case and to give my summation in front of all the suspects, witnesses, and police officers, and just be brilliant. And I'm just waiting for that to happen. That sort of thing just doesn't come up in real life very often. It's perpetually disappointing. So, thank you for listening. I'll be back with another video soon.